Welcome. It's September 20th, 2022. My name is Joe Weston, and we're here for our online weekly global practice for reviving the global heart. And it's great to see you all. And as I always say, seeing familiar faces, seeing new faces, and knowing that in this community that we're cultivating, that we've been holding space for a few years now of this idea of manifesting on this planet a culture of lasting peace, weaving a golden thread of lasting peace throughout the world. And that I can't reiterate that more and more in all the work that we're doing in different parts of the US and the world, that if there's anything the planet needs right now is an increase in how we are connecting with each other, that we're making more connections and in the quality of our connections. We've done a lot of work throughout the decades, I would say, certainly in Western cultures and certainly in people who have the privilege to self-actualize and work on themselves and attend retreats and read books for that. And that's a large population on this planet that we've spent decades now healing our own wounds, getting to know ourselves, working on who we are, self-actualizing, becoming the best we can be, attaining, for the goal of spiritual attainment or peace or fulfillment. And that the planet is calling us, and all the creatures on the planet are calling us, and the situation on the planet is calling all of us who have been doing this work to now figure out ways, how can we be of support to others? That's my viewpoint. I think it's crucial. And that the first step in that is that taking all of our wonderful gifts and insights and wisdom and intelligence and resources and figure out ways of communicating and connecting with others. And that, of course, it's a good place to start with people you know and people you consider loved ones, people who align with your viewpoints and your value system and how you see the world. That's a great place to start. So I recommend that, and to reinforce those relationships and to strengthen them. And in that process, what you're doing is you're creating a support system for those people who in those moments are struggling, so that you can be of support to them. And it is also crucial at this time to find ways to stretch ourselves outside of what feels safe in the communities that we know, and figure out strategies, skills, and ways to engage with people we don't know, to increase our capacity to connect and create a larger community of people who share in this vision of a culture of lasting peace. We don't have to become their friends. We don't have to even like them. We don't have to agree or see things the same way that they see it, but that there might still be some thread, some kernel of common ground that can unite you for a common cause. And I believe that that is the solution. I mean, that there are probably other solutions, but for me, that is the solution, is that we take a moment to try our best to first not identify with our viewpoints. We have to remember we aren't our viewpoints, we have viewpoints. And if we can put that aside and put aside how our differences are separating us, and put aside our beliefs and all of that, and in a renewed way, see where the alignment might simply be that while this person might have totally different views than mine or see the world differently, where we do align is that we are disheartened by the level of lack of civility, the level of aggression, polarization that has seeped so deeply into all aspects of our lives. And that even though we may have different views, that you and I can align on that, and we can become allies on that. And imagine if that was our number one focus. If we I know it's a lot to ask to consider putting around issues around race or abortion or all of these issues, or income inequality, all of that, those are all tied in. But imagine if we can find a common ground that our true common enemy is lack of civility on all sides, and choose to connect in that way and become allies to overcome that aspect. Because imagine if we have overcome lack of civility and the disrespectful ways we treat each other, then we can get back to having conversations. We can get back to debating and discussing issues and dialoguing on things that may be messy, and we may not all get what we want, but we can figure out a way that we can all get what we need. And from there, create a culture where everyone can be engaged, everyone can feel respected, everyone can feel some level of value and dignity, everyone can feel a sense of belonging. And that it is possible, I believe, to be in the both and of individual freedom and individual creative expression, as well as collaboration. They don't have to cancel it. It doesn't have to be either or, either my freedom or collaboration. But that actually, that's a fallacy. That actually, the more I express my individual freedom and viewpoints, the more I bring to the collaboration. And the more we can find a respectful, creative, inclusive way of collaborating that allows each one of us to step into our uniqueness. And in our collaboration, we've created the circumstances and the conditions for each individual to explore their own level of personal freedom. So I don't know where I'm going with all this, but I'm going. And I think that this of course is the essence of fierce civility. And I bring this up in the larger context of the importance of gathering in community. That is the key. In a world where we're so isolated, where we're so caught up in social media, where to be able to remember that the World Wide Web was developed to connect us, not tear us down, not tear systems down, and not create more separation and animosity. And that if we can focus not only on our own self preservation, fulfillment, and actualization, but also invest time and energy in making new connections and deepening and cultivating and fostering those connections. That's where I think we'll ease into more of where the world is going with the system that is dying away and a new system that has been emerging. I think that the key of that is in the connection. I bring this in the context of this week. This week is the Peace Week, in honor of where many organizations around the world, thousands of organizations, millions of individuals are honoring in some way this week, Peace Week, which is in honor of the United Nations International Day of Peace, which happens every September 21st. I forget how many decades that's been happening, but it's been happening for quite a while. And it's this idea of everyone puts down their arms. The request is for one day that all governments and militaries, armies can put down their guns, but that we also can disarm ourselves for a day and to see what that's like. In that process, even for a moment, to get back to, if we can, and I think that's an interesting practice. What does disarming yourself look like? And I think it's many of the things that I've just mentioned that we talk about. What are all the mental constructs that are keeping you in this cycle of opposition and polarization and antagonism and victim perpetrator dynamic or aggressor defender? And what would it take to disarm yourself from all of that? This is for yourself. And remember what it's like to get back to your humanity. What does that mean for you? And in that process of connecting with your humanity, doing the same thing for the other, letting go of all your mental constructs of separation about them to tap into their hearts, tap into their humanity, which we always have access to. So the work isn't that we cultivate our humanity or we increase our humanity is fully realized. It's fully whole. The humanity of every human being is fully realized and fully whole. The problem is all the obscurations and filters and veils that are in the way that keep us from connecting with that on a regular basis. So what would it look like this week or today or for now to just put down our arms, put down our armor, excuse me, and remember who we are at our best, at our highest, and to hold each human being in highest regard, in as much as that feels safe for you and appropriate for you. Even for one day, even for a moment. And that's what we're doing in this practice on a weekly basis. One of the quotes that have been, one of the people who has inspired me, and her quote, some of you know this, I don't talk about it as much, but it was that really inspired the respectful confrontation work and really set me on course for my vision and my mission, was from the Peace Pilgrim. If you don't know who she is, you should check her out. She she's an American woman, nun, I believe. She was a nun, I believe. N-U-N, not N-O-N-E. And she was, in the 1950s, she was exacerbated by the whole thing about war. And she just decided that I can't do this anymore. And she gave up everything and she started walking through the United States, from what I understand, with a pencil, and something else, forget, some other things. And if people fed her, she would eat. And if people gave her water, she would drink water. And if people gave her a place to sleep, she would sleep on a mattress. And there's beautiful things that she's written about peace. The one that stands out, I've quoted it in different ways. I want to give the exact quote, is she says, "We will not end world war and strife until each one of us look at our own personal psychological violence and take steps to eliminate it." We will not end world war and strife until each one of us look at our own personal psychological violence and take steps to eliminate it. Which really hits to this idea that there's so many people out there who are, pointing the finger at others for being violent and for causing harm. And while those people may not be causing that same kind of harm, what aspects within themselves, either in their words or their thoughts, maybe not in their actions, that are causing violence in some level to ourselves and to others. And that for a culture of lasting peace to really take root, we have to really consider this. What's our contribution? We may not be world leaders or have the power to drop bombs or to affect the environment with toxins and things like that. But what small part are we playing in that? And what small part can we play in eliminating the violence and stepping into more of a sense of peace? So I want to just bring that in as something to contemplate, that each one of us play our part. And that might feel frustrating. It's like, what could I do? What could my one thing do? Well, that's a start. If more of us, because think about it, if enough of us committed to looking at our own personal psychological violence and taking steps to eliminate it, if enough of us did that, it would radically change the planet. Doesn't have to be all of us, just enough of us. And there are already so many people who are. So in this process of connecting with people, we inspire and support one another to stay true to that, hold each other accountable to our values. And when enough of us do that, then we will see lasting peace manifested on this planet. So even our one little contribution in unity with others has a huge impact. I think it was Martin Luther King or someone who said that, with one candle, if 1 million people stand with one candle, that becomes one glowing light. That's what we're working for. And if you feel like your little contribution, little in quotation marks, is not satisfying to you, then talk to me or talk to others about how you can increase your scope of influence. How can you be more engaged in your community, in your nation, in the planet itself? If that feels frustrating to you, you're what you might consider a small contribution. Consider that there are ways of you increasing your scope of influence. Keith Loring says, from Leo Tolstoy, as long as there are slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. Can you explain, Keith, briefly why you thought of that?
It's the violence piece, because when you mention the quote about and there won't be peace until we take care of our own inner violence, I think that's just another way of expressing the same thought.
Yeah, it's looking at it from a different way. I appreciate that, because it's what you're doing is asking people to look at things from a different way. You could also think about if you have a lot of prisons, then you're going to have to arrest people, because you got to keep that prison system going, right? So, you know, it's backward. It's really and I always bring this one in. This is not directly related, but it's like, you know, it's how it gives us an idea of how we've lost our way in this, where we have to put people in jail because we have to keep the prison system going, when the prison system was, I think, originally set up to make sure people don't commit crimes. But I could be wrong. I don't know. But from what I studied with my studies with ancient traditions in China, in Chinese medicine and things like that, that at that time in the villages, there was a doctor, and the families in that village would pay the doctor money when their family was healthy. The doctor would get a monthly fee when the family was healthy. As soon as someone in the family stopped being healthy, they stopped paying the doctor. And it was the doctor's job to get them healthy, not only to keep them healthy, but also to get paid. And that, again, that seems more logical to me, that the doctor's job is to keep you well, not to perpetuate your illnesses or not to, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I think this is what's awakening with us, is for what I'm seeing. That we're remembering where we may have lost our way with a lot of these things that may have had benefit at some time, but are no longer benefiting us, and in fact, working against us. And Jean emphasizes, yes, that so many of the prison systems are for profit. So I guess that's my answer. All right, so let's bring this into our practice in honoring of this day. You should look it up online, see what's happening, but in honoring of the United Nations International Day of Peace, which is tomorrow, but we're honoring it today. This idea of not only cultivating within ourselves inner peace, but that in understanding that in the strengthening and the and increasing of our connections throughout the planet, we also strategically play a role in manifesting on this planet a culture of lasting peace. So coming into alignment, as always, sitting in a way where your spine is straight without being rigid. Remember, we're cultivating in this practice resilience and fierce compassion. And in resilience, we define that as presence, awareness, balance, and flow in order to meet challenges with grace, with skill, and creativity. Relaxing your jaw, your shoulders, your belly. Power sit. Bringing your attention now to a spot in your lower belly, approximately the width of 3 fingers below your navel, 1/3 of the way into the body. We call your core, your center of gravity, impulse, creativity. personal power, awareness. Bringing your full attention to your core, and from your core, become aware of your contact points, the parts of your body that are connecting with what you're sitting on the ground. Feeling those points in your body pressing down towards the ground and the floor, the chair, whatever you're sitting on. Feeling the stability of that, and from that stability, trusting that you can be held. Let yourself be held. As you are gauging with the ground and the floor, imagine you being held by Mother Earth. And considering that in her 4 billion years or so of existence, she knows what peace is. That even with the fleeting volatility at any moment on this planet, at her core, she knows peace. And resting in that. Coming into the present moment more, this starting with yourself, from your center, become aware of your physical body. What would it be like, even in your physical body, to disarm, to let go of all the things that feel like struggle to get to a sense of inner peace within your own physical body? What does peace feel like in your body, the experience of peace? Not discounting or judging how you are right now. However you're right now is exactly how you are supposed to be. Just trusting that there is possibility to experience in your body peace. From your center, become aware of your emotional body. Checking in with currently what your emotional patterns are. What's your emotional weather? And it might be stormy, might be calm. And there may have been, just trusting that there may have been moments of peace in that. From your center, become aware of your thoughts, your mental body. How are your thoughts in this moment? And in that, the whirlwind or the activation in your thoughts, where is the sense of peace? Maintaining a connection with your core, now bringing awareness to your heart center, where your heart power resides, compassion, respect, connection. From your center and from your heart, become aware of that part of you which has access to something larger than yourself. And in that part of you, is there peace? Is there presence? Is there aliveness? And from that part of you, connecting in this moment with something larger than yourself. Noticing the effects of connecting with something larger than yourself. And is there the possibility that connecting with something larger than yourself can bring you peace? And with this connection with yourself, let that, and the experience you're feeling in your heart and in your core, let that radiate out into your personal space, filling your personal space out to the very edges of your personal boundaries in all directions. A bubble of peace around you, or the possibility. With this awareness of self and this present moment, from your center and from your heart, take a deep breath in. With this awareness of self, from your center and from your heart, Keeping your eyes closed, become aware of your surroundings in all directions, behind you, above you. And as you check in with your surroundings, what's your relationship with it in this moment? How are you experiencing it? Is there a thread of peace in your experience? And as you're connecting to light and smells and objects, take a moment and listen. And consider, what does peace sound like? What does peace sound like? Search for it. With this awareness of self and surroundings from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in. Expanding our awareness in this present moment from your center and from your heart, become aware of those in this meditation circle. Through the World Wide Web, strengthening your connections, opening a thread of golden thread from your heart and core to someone new who may have joined us, strengthening and reinforcing those threads of those who have been here on a regular basis, who you have been in community with, stretching those cords, those golden threads of humanity out towards those who aren't here today, but continue to show up for this community. In North America, Europe, other parts of the world. And just opening to the possibility that these reinforced connections can bring a deeper level of peace. Feeling any armament, and see if you can release any and disarm. And with this awareness of self, surroundings, and those in this meditation circle from your center and from your heart, take a full breath in. Now building on that from your center and from your heart, with a connection to self, surroundings, and those in this meditation circle, maintaining that awareness or possibility or aspiration for peace. Become aware of all human beings, beginning with those human beings you would label loved ones. And who arises in your heart? What faces do you see? And no need to seek out people, really truly just sit for a moment and see who arises. If no one arises, then no one arises. And stay connected to those in this meditation circle and yourself. Who arises? People you know. How many people do you see? And from your center and from your heart, connecting with them. And what might you need to do to disarm, to cultivate a deeper level of connection from their humanity to yours? You don't need to do it, simply be aware. You could do it. The awareness might just be enough. Allowing energy to flow and emotions to flow. From your center and from your heart, becoming aware of those human beings you would label stranger. And who arises in your heart? What faces do you see? Groups of people. Let them arise in your heart. Could be someone you saw on the news because of a weather catastrophe. Someone that you saw in the supermarket. And as you engage with them from your core and from your heart with theirs, with honor and respect, consider what would it take, what disarming needs to happen within you to cultivate a deeper level of coming from your humanity. considering connecting with theirs. And from your center and from your heart, become aware of those human beings you would label adversary. And simply be in this moment and see who arises in your heart. What faces do you see? Groups of people. Maybe some group of people or someone you saw on the news, a neighbor, a work colleague, a family member. And as you do your best, maintaining your own personal boundaries and level of safety from your center and from your heart connecting with theirs, what might it look like to disarm within yourself? To be able to, even with these people, resonate more from your humanity. Now imagine engaging with all human beings in this moment with this possible thought that the more you can resonate from your humanity, from your personal power in your heart, the more you create the conditions and the circumstances for others to open to their humanity. Imagine if each human being now had that same aspiration in their hearts, and that each one of us, with every person we engage with, we can see it in our mind's eye, that it instantly activates the humanity in the others. In every corner of the planet. Every time we engage, we reinforce the humanity of ourselves and the other. Imagine this being our normal way of being on this planet. With that awareness, take a full breath in. Holding that as an aspiration, as a vision, allow all human beings fully activated in their humanity to flow into your heart. As you bring your attention back to those in this meditation circle, deep respect and honor, gratitude for the commitment of those who hold space with you. Allowing them to flow into your heart as you bring your awareness back to your own space, your surroundings. Filling this awareness, this vision into your surroundings. Weaving that into what this peace sounds like, the sound of peace in your surroundings. Bringing all that back into yourself now. As you disarm all of the ways that you get in the way of yourself, you harm yourself, the personal psychological violence you do to yourself. Imagine in this moment, with all of the practice you've just done, that it dissolves all the ways, it disarms all the ways you harm yourself for good. Where you can tap into your own level of humanity with yourself. So letting the benefits of this practice now flow into every cell of your being, of your body, awakening and activating all of your cells, flowing into your organs to nurture and heal, create flow. Flowing into your nervous system as a way to remember this practice so you can walk this into the world, walking into the world that whoever you encounter with the aspiration to activate their humanity, the fullness of their humanity. And allowing this to seep into your core, which is your battery, charging you, filling and tanking up with this life force energy, becoming more resilient. And as a way to close this practice, let's take one final breath. And when you're done, slowly open your eyes, look around the room, shake your body, stretch your body. And we started with our motivation, we did our practice, now we have a chance to reflect. Who would like to share? Anything from what we discussed, anything from the practice?
Joe, I'll share. When you were talking about the victim perpetrator dynamic, my head just kept going there and thinking about you know, that dynamic is a three-part dynamic, and I think a lot about the violence of the rescuer role. Not that rescuing itself in an authentic way isn't you know, compassionate, and if it comes from a place of self-compassion that we're offering to others, it can be so gentle, right? But I mean, how many wars have been fought because we're going in to save people by our own definition? And how often do we call those forces peacekeeping forces? And that the penal system, which I believe it is in fact a penal system, is oftentimes called a correctional system. And that attempt to rescue comes from a rigidity inside of us, you know, about how we think we should be, and this enforcement on how other people should be, instead of coming from this place of you know, that hurt me, that harmed me, you know, I'm frightened by that, or that impacts my world, and this more personal approach, this more authentic approach to being present for somebody in a healing opportunity, rather than this self-righteousness that comes from that rescuing role. I should say rescuing role, right? Because it's not really a authentic helping role. So I'm forever grateful for that piece of information, and know that I have to stay so aware of it. Yeah. It's so easy to slip into. So I was really grateful for the shared meditation around all of that today, particularly all of the references to self-compassion. I see in myself and others so consistently that it's almost impossible to offer other people compassion that we haven't offered ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Beautiful. I don't have anything to add. I mean, I can add a lot, but there's no need to. It was so beautiful and complete and touching. Thank you.
Hi, if I may to sort of dovetail on what CJ said about self-compassion, one of the things that I've learned very, very clearly for myself, but this is a universal dynamic, that there's been, especially in healthcare circles, this concept of compassion fatigue. And in actuality, I don't think compassion has any bounds, but the way I've learned to frame it is there is no such thing as compassion fatigue, but there is such a thing as lack of self-compassion. That what we call compassion fatigue in people is really that they're not taking care of themselves.
Beautiful. Again, I could say a lot, but I don't feel like I need to. It's so complete. Thank you.
Yeah.
You all are so smart, as we would say in Queen. So smart.
Experience, not smart.
If I could, I would like to actually add one thing to that, because it can help people to have, you know, sort of the different branding. You know, I think that's why compassion fatigue became such a so prominent, because it was great branding. And so rather than compassion fatigue, it could be a self-care deficit, which is really, you know, what I hear, and certainly what I've experienced from others. It's a self-care deficit, and if we called it that, then it could potentially prompt people to clear action.
Yeah.
Liking it. I'm liking it. Thank you, Golden.
Thank you, Golden. I want to say that for me, a lot of when I find myself in compassion fatigue, that it oftentimes is about feeling less than effective, right? And so then I sometimes go, and that's part of self-care, right? Is going in and finding new methods and looking at, am I being too attached to outcomes, or am I I should say, just for me, it's about constantly growing. That for me, that's a big part of self-care. I guess everybody has to have their own definition of self-care, and there's a lot of it's very different. Every time I hear somebody say that self-care for them is a manicure, my head kind of goes, and that's for them. That's not necessarily self-care for me. So, but I totally agree that compassion fatigue is about ignoring ourselves and our needs. So I love this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. It's also a deficit of boundary setting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that plays a big part. Like even in the whole triangle, the perpetrator violates boundaries. The victim has probably had boundaries violated. The rescuer also is not really clear on what boundaries are, either their own boundaries or boundaries of others. So, all right.
Oh, that is.
Hmm?
I'm so sorry, Joe. I just want to say that is so important for me to hear. And I think it brings us full circle back to the first comment about, the reason I rescue is because I am in pain, or I feel myself in danger, or I feel myself missing something I really want to hold on to. And so I step over my boundaries into someone else's life. This has been really important for me because this for me is the expression of codependence. And codependence can look so wonderful and be so socially rewarded, and yet is a violation. So I really appreciate the articulation of this morning or today.
Thank you, Golden. Okay, let's do our dedication. Thank you all. So someone asked, so some of you are asking, now it looks like the book's coming out at the end of November. We'll keep you, it's like a movie, or it's like keep extending it, keep you waiting for it. So keep holding space for us, please. It's coming together. It's really coming. Let's dedicate the beautiful energy we've created with each other here. Let's dedicate it to everyone, that may they find within themselves the healthy capacity for setting boundaries and self-care, and whatever that means for them. That more of us understand this idea that we are not going to see lasting peace on the planet if we don't first look at our own personal psychological violence. And that in the spirit of United Nations International Day of Peace, that we hold this, that tomorrow may be the blossoming of something new, and what's emerging on this planet to just get a spurt of energy and growth. That more of us wake up to this possibility of disarming and finding ways, however messy, just to deepen our connections with one another, even with those we don't know. Okay, thank you, everyone. Vanessa, great to see you. Let's talk soon. And I hope to stay in touch with you all. If you have any questions or comments or anything, just feel free to reach out. Otherwise, see you again next week.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Joe.
everyone.
Bye.
Everyone.